I have some good lessons to share. These are not because I know everything or because I have made it or any of that craziness. These are just like things that have been like important to my life over the last few years that I figured, or over the last year that I figured I would share. Yeah, I am finishing up my 7th year in business in July, just turned 37. So yeah, it just feels like 7 is the right number here. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you, Mary. Making food. Oh, that's awesome. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. I was just saying, like, I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to be here today. It feels like I'm just so bad at like tracking these days being, in your own business sometimes. So anyway, that is what we're working with today. So I am going to share these lessons and also just say, like, this does not take away from the fact that Memorial Day is very important and something we should all recognize. Just can't get my dates right. So that's what we're doing. Hey, Steph from Poland. Amazing. Hey, Stephanie. Oh, we have multiple staffs. Welcome, guys. Okay. So this is just like a casual thing. Like some of these are personal, some of these are business, but really just kind of like a reflection. But I always love hearing this from other people because it just reminds me, like, maybe I am not learning that in that season, but like reminding myself what an important lesson that is. So I always love these things. So hopefully it's just kind of like a fun and casual one that you guys can have, little takeaways from here and there. So, oh yeah, daycare reminds you. That makes sense. Useful. I'm sure once Ben is, and so I will never forget these. Okay, so first one, I feel like I used to share this a lot on Happy Thoughts in a different way. Does Kenny have his own biz too? Other people's time off helps me keep on track. That makes sense. Yeah. So Kenny doesn't. He works for a really big company, but he has just like a very, very flexible job because he travels a lot. So it's like when he's traveling, he's like on, and when he's not traveling, it's just like very flexible. So it almost like doesn't change our day that much either. So like, yeah, that like it's not like a marker almost, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mary. Yes, totally. 7 years feels big. I know, Lisa, I miss Happy Thoughts too. I feel like, that was like so perfect in that season. Sometimes I think like, oh, I would love to share this. It would be so Happy Thoughts appropriate, but obviously right thing, right time. So the thing I used to share on there so often that I feel like has really served me in this season that I've been in is the quote. I don't know whose it is. I've never known this. I think a lot of people have different versions of this quote, but it's basically like all unhappiness is the result of unmet expectations. Thank you, Steph. Thanks, Mandy. Yeah, so all unhappiness is the result of unmet expectations. So I feel like the way that has really served me in the last year and in this season is I really, really, and I'm not saying this is right for anyone else. This is like just me, just my reflection, right? But I really, really, really went into pregnancy and birth and motherhood, but definitely pregnancy and birth with no expectations. I did almost no research. I read no books. I was just like, I just want this like to feel so organic. I personally, for me, know that I can tend to be a bit of a control freak. And so I just like let all of that go. And I was just like, I want no expectations. And so even in terms of like birth plan and stuff, like I had nothing really. And again, this is not right for everyone, but for me, that served me so well. Had the best pregnancy. I had an even better birth. Like I wish I could I give birth multiple times over. And I really, really think, again, for me, not having those certain expectations of this is the way it's supposed to look and this is the way it's supposed to go really, really served me. And so I think that like certain situations that's appropriate for, and I think that that was one of them for me, like just remembering that so much of our unhappiness comes from having this certain expectation that isn't met. And so what does it look like in some areas to drop all of the expectations, right? Yes, you read a lot about it, Steph. Yael said, I forget all about the American holidays. I know, same. I do have July 4th off. I do know that. Yes, you want to do it once a month. That's kind of how I feel too. I'm like, we're very happy with like one child, but I wish I could like give birth again, basically. Hey, Shantae. Releasing expectations definitely serves me too. Right. So that's like been one of my big lessons this year. Like, and even with motherhood too, like I just didn't have this like really specific way that I thought it was going to go or that I wanted it to be. And I think that that's just served me a lot. I was talking to one of my clients about that this morning. Like when I had been at he was like at risk for jaundice and my milk hadn't like fully come in yet and all this stuff. And so they were like, the nurses were like, very like, okay, we kind of have to like give him some formula. And they were almost like, I think they expected me to be like quite upset about it. And I was like, cool, rock on, whatever he needs, give it to him. You know, and again, I'm not saying that you can't have your own preferences and boundaries for your child, but for me, I just didn't have the expectation on myself of like, it has to go this way, or like, I have to exclusively breastfeed. And I didn't end up being able to do that. And like, yes, I tried really, really hard to get my milk supply up, but it was more like I wanted to get my milk supply up. I wasn't like, I suck as a mom. And again, I just think it was like not having those intense expectations on myself and the experience that has made it so joyful for me. So that has just been a really good lesson. And I'm just like really, really happy that that is how I was able to lean into it. And I noticed similarly with business, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this thing because it feels fun. That's when it like blows up or gets really, you know, great feedback or whatever. So anyway, that has just been one of my lessons. All unhappiness is the result of unmet expectations. It does not mean that you can't have clear desires or any of those things, but I do think that sometimes the way we set expectations can be really damaging. Yeah, I'll research the crap out of everything. That's just how I roll. Exactly. Like this is about like, it gets to be right for you. It doesn't get to be right for you. This is one of my lessons, right? You might be just like Yael and like want to do all of the research, and that's totally cool too. But for me, that was really helpful. And even just recently, we took Bennett to Disney for the first time. And like in my head, I was kind of like, okay, we're taking a friggin' 1-year-old to Disney. Like this is quite likely going to be like this many like magical moments, and then otherwise like maybe a shit show. We'll see. He's like walking just but not well and all of this stuff. And it was actually the opposite. It was like this much of a shit show and this many magical moments. And so it was just like cool to be like, where I'm seeing myself thrive is every time I release expectations of like it's going to be the most perfect thing ever, and then it like kind of ends up being. So it's like really interesting. Yes. And more so pressure around those expectations. Exactly. Elisa perfectly said. Yes. Okay. So next lesson is like, it's okay to just keep doing your thing is kind of like a lesson I've had over the last year. Like I've been doing the same thing at a lit up life for a fucking long time. Right. And of course we like evolve with trends and whatever, but like, at the end of the day, mostly like we keep working what works and what feels best for me. And I feel like just like being okay with that is a really important lesson. I think there's like so much pressure in our space to like always evolve and always do the next thing and always like, you know, follow every trend and be on top of every single, you know, thing out there and like evolving your business constantly. Like if you're not growing, you're dying, blah, blah, blah. And like for me, it's just been like really beautiful to give myself the permission that like, I feel like we have a really well-oiled machine right now and it's working really well and it feels really good to me and I can just keep doing that. You know, I think that, there's like really something to be said for that, especially in certain seasons. Like obviously this is the season where I needed that. But I feel like that's just an important lesson overall for that permission to be there too, of like, you really can keep doing your thing that's working, even as trends shift over time and stuff, right? Like, I feel like in our space, there's so many different things that have been like cool at different times, like the course, the mastermind, the group program, the one-on-one, like everything kind of like takes its turn getting put on a pedestal or being like the coolest thing. And I feel like it's just been so valuable to be like, I just know my thing. And so to me, that's the coolest thing, right? Like my thing happens to be one-on-one. I recognize that over 7 years, that has gone in and out of like coolness in different ways at different times. And I feel like the reason I'm like at the place I'm at where it is such a well-oiled machine and books really easily and we have a long wait list and all of the things is because I stuck to that even when it wasn't like the thing. But there's always a person that wants your thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, there might have been a time where like masterminds were so much cooler than one-on-one, but there were still people that wanted one-on-one, right? And if that shifts where like one-on-one is the thing, there will still be people that are craving mastermind. So I think it's just really important to like give yourself permission for that and not try to always adapt and change. Like, yes, we have to be adaptable as business owners, but the idea that like you have to move with every trend is totally unhelpful. Yeah, sorry, I said resonate with that a lot. Thank you, Lacey. Hi, hi. Yeah, so for me, that's just been a really big gift this year is to just remember like it's okay to just keep doing your thing, you know? And again, like obviously new mom kind of tough season of life in many ways over the last year with losing my dad and everything. And like that's really served me and has been what I needed. And it's also, I think, what has allowed us to actually keep growing through a season like that because I didn't feel all this pressure to like reinvent the wheel. So that has been a really big and important one, and just like a lot of permission, which kind of leads me to the next ones, which is that next one, which is that like different seasons give and take different things from you. And like recognizing that is really important. And so what I mean by that is like, you may have a season where, like I'll just use myself, right? Like I've had seasons in business where I just like didn't have a lot of other shit going on. Like I, have had a lot of support in my life. I was like with Kenny, right? I wasn't like single, but I was single in the sense that I wasn't married. And I just like had a lot of time to pour into the business. And so I did a lot of things then that were like really, really valuable and really set us up in a big way. And I feel like that season gave me a lot in terms of the business foundations, right? And it also took more time and energy and effort. And now I'm in a season where, the opposite is kind of true. I don't have as much time and energy and effort going into the business, but like it's supporting me in a different way. And it's like that will change too, right? Like as Bennett gets older, then I'm sure I will have other seasons where I pour a lot more back in and vice versa. But it's just about remembering the trade-off and that different seasons take and give you different things, right? And I feel like where we're always getting so fucked up in the online space is thinking that that's not a thing. Yes, yay for permission. Thank you, Julie. So grateful for your message about sticking with the strategy. I'm so glad that helps. But to me, like where the online space fucks us up so much is this idea that like there aren't a thing of seasons and it's just about like having every single thing that you want and having no compromises all the time, no matter what. And it's like, that's what makes us crazy because we feel like we're getting it wrong. Instead of realizing like, yes, you can kind of have it all, but it's going to look different in different seasons. And there's going to be different trade-offs you're navigating at any time. And those trade-offs might not even really feel like trade-offs in those seasons. Like for me right now, I don't constantly think like, oh, I wish I could be pouring so much back into the business. Like I'm not feeling a ton of tension around that. I'm just aware of the fact that like, this isn't my season for that necessarily, right? I think I'm getting a little more into it now, but like certainly the last year and a half was not. And even before that, right? Because when I was pregnant, I was pouring a lot into like getting set up for maternity leave, not necessarily doing more for the business. So anyway, like for a couple years, like that was just not it, right? And I think that's important because it's so easy to make all of that wrong. Like, why am I not like having the baby and, putting out 5 new opt-ins and like, it's just so damaging. And I really feel like it is one of the hardest things for moms in our space. I've like talked about this a lot in different ways, but I feel like the corporate mentality is like, oh, if you have a kid, you're fucked. But I feel like the online mentality is like, if anything changes because you had a kid, you're doing it wrong. And that like the polarized nature of both of those, I think is just so unfortunate. And again, this isn't just about being a mom, but of course that's the like year that I've been in. Because Bennett is just now a year old, right? But I really think that it's so important to say that because there just are different seasons and you're going to get a lot out of some of them in certain ways and you're going to get certain things out of others. And I feel like when you can embrace that, life and business just get so much fucking easier. And I feel like when you fight that so hard, you feel that tension all the time. And so just, different things are good in different times and in different ways, right? Yeah, I said I was actually more productive with my baby home with me, even though that sounds bananas. No, I kind of get that, right? Because when you have like less time, you're just like, I have to get these 3 things done in like 10 minutes or whatever. more focused when I have less time to work. Yep, hear that very much. Totally. But right, like I think it's just so helpful to be like, okay, like I might have less time to put into the business, but I might be more focused. And then at other times I might have more time to put into the business and I might have like less intense focus. And like those different things are both okay. It's just different seasons for different things. And I think again, like the embracing of the cyclicalness of all of this feels so, so important. And it's just like the easiest way to not make ourselves wrong, which is like always what I'm coming back to, right? It's like, how do we make ourselves right in this process? And for me, just acknowledging that different seasons will require different things of me, will give me different things, will have different trade-offs is how I make myself right. Instead of being like, this should look like this should look like that. This used to look like this used to look like that, right? Like that's where we make ourselves wrong. And then we're officially stuck, right? So that idea that seasons exist to give you different things at different times has been really nourishing for me. Another lesson is like happy clients are it, guys. Like they are the core of every bit of success that is sustainable and that actually feels good. Like could not double down on or agree with that more. Like when you have happy clients, it's so easy to ride the different seasons of business because one, a lot of clients stick around, and two, even if they're, not in a season of sticking around, they market for you, right? And so I feel like when I've seen businesses in the online space like really face big, big challenges, it's because they weren't caring about having happy clients along the way. They were just like growing and doing the thing and scaling. They were like, whatever, if you're not happy, bye. Right. And that catches up to you. It really does. And I'm not saying you have to make every person happy no matter what. That's completely impossible. We will all have unhappy clients from time to time. But I'm saying by and large, are you paying attention to that in your business? Are you building a business for that? Are you focused on that? Does that get your attention? Like for me, taking a bunch of time off for maternity leave, having to kind of come back and rework like what my schedule is, how I show up, different things like that. Like that was easy because I have long-term really happy clients, right? It never felt like tension or stress or disappointment or any of those things. I also feel like same with why I have a long wait list. The reason I have a long wait list is because clients that are in are really happy and they tell other people that they're really happy. And then those people get on the wait list, right? Like it's kind of that simple. And so I feel like just really being willing to make that a focal point of your business and seeing that as your biggest asset is so important. I feel like so many people, and I don't mean that they do this, I think it's unintentional, right? But I feel like so many people almost feel like serving clients gets in the way of them like doing the marketing and showing up and all of that kind of stuff. And I get that because there's so much pressure to grow and market and be everywhere all the time. But to me, serving my clients and creating great relationships there and happy clients is the best use of my time. And business continues to be, always has been. And it's what has made this season feel super sustainable. I feel like it's what, makes me most excited about celebrating 7 years in business. Like there's just so much to be said for that being a focus versus like a bit of churn and burn mentality of like, whatever, there's more where that came from. Like there is, but as our space grows and expands and there's more noise and competition and all of those things, someone that's just a genuine advocate for you and thinks that you deliver an amazing service is way more valuable than like a Facebook ad or whatever else could ever be. So just like reflecting on the last year and how much I've gone through personally, having that as the foundation has been incredibly supportive. And so this is just like a little reminder that, I think most of us want and build for happy clients. I just think it's easy to lose sight of. Like, again, I think it's not like anyone's like, I fucking hate my clients. I think it's just easy to be like, I have so much else to do and to focus on. This is just this thing I kind of like have to do to fulfill on like the money I've made. And if we can like change that narrative of like, this is the best and most important thing I get to do, I think that life and business get a lot easier from there. Thank you, Belinda. Such a big lesson you taught me. I can stop making myself wrong. 100%. Always the fucking goal. Always the goal. Hey Tristan, I know this might be a month late as a birthday message, but feeling grateful for the way you've touched the world during the first 37 years. Excitedly watching those ripples improve the world. Oh, thank you, Tristan. That's so kind. I love that. Yeah. So anyway, that is just such an important one. Like happy clients are the core of everything you do in business and are what, to me, like when we talk about like passive marketing or passive income and stuff like that, I'm like, that's it for me, is like when my clients are so happy they're marketing for me, like that's the goal. Right. So just a reminder that is so valuable. Another thing that I really had to lean into this year is like, it's okay to do the thing you said you wouldn't do. And it's okay to change your mind. I think both in motherhood and in business. There's so many things I know that I said like I wouldn't do in motherhood. Like, example, I told y'all earlier, we took Bennett to Disney. If like before I had him, I'd have been like, I would fucking never take a 1-year-old to Disney. What's the point? They're not going to remember. They're a hot mess. Like, why put yourself through that? And now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh, because it's like the most magical fucking thing in the whole world, watching it through their eyes. And so I'm not taking him for him, or because he's going to remember, like I'm taking him for me because like I want to see him experience Disney. So like just knowing that it's okay to change your mind, but I certainly had to do that in business this year too. Like what I said in business was I was never going to have a course. Like I don't believe in that. I don't think it's a thing. And of course now Measure and Maximize is like my baby. I believe in it so fucking much. I think learning how to use data in your own business is a game changer. And what I couldn't see before, right, is how there was a way to have a course that was like truly personal and all of that and revolved around data and all of those things. So like, it's just okay to change your mind, and it's okay to do the thing you said you were never going to do. And it's okay to like rethink what you thought. And it's okay to get new information and make a new decision, right? It's just so helpful to give yourself that permission. Happy birthday. Wishing you the best. Thank you, Reg. I appreciate that. Hey, Leah, co-signing the magic of 1-year-old at Disney and straight up processing my trauma from the experience. That's totally. I remember you guys had such a tough night there. But like, you never know, right? Like it's either going to go great or it's going to be terrible, or it's probably going to be a combination of both. And like it, until you like think about taking your kid there, it makes no sense why you'd put yourself through it. And then you do, and you're like, it was worth it, you know? You love Disney and Universal. I haven't been to Universal in a while. I definitely want to go there again soon, but I feel like Disney is more age appropriate for him, but I can't wait till we can do Harry Potter. But yeah, like I was never going to do the course. I wasn't even like, what business did I have even starting a second business, quite honestly, right? Like there are all these things that I was not going to do, right? Even when Sarah and I kind of stopped Happy Thoughts, it like made sense at that time to be like, it does not make sense to split my attention. And yet here we are. So I feel like sometimes, especially when we're like online and people are watching us and seeing how things evolve, it can be so easy to feel like once I've said something once, I like cannot go against it, or I cannot change my mind. And I think just like remembering like you are an evolving human, and like one of the hallmarks of I think being like a wise human is being willing to like make new decisions with new information. So like just remember that like being wise does not mean you decided something once and then you never, ever, ever deviated from that and never let the online world see that you thought something different. Like, I think it's about being like, I'm willing to say, hey, I changed my mind. I'm willing to say, hey, I thought about this differently, or whatever. Again, whether that's parenthood or business or whatever, like permission to be an evolving human, you know? Yeah, also I went to Disney and Universal with my sister and we had the best freaking time, but I feel like Universal wins. Okay, good to know. Yep, never say never about anything. I was never going to marry a British guy. Yep, perfect example. You went for Harry Potter. Yes, I cannot wait. But right, like I think that that's just so true. Never say never, right? Or say never and then still fucking change your mind. Like I said, I would never launch a course and then I did. So it's like just there's so much permission in that, you know. I think again, especially when you're putting out stuff online where it feels like you can't. And the reminder that I've kind of had this year is just like, I can, and I get to. Like I said to Kenny, you know, we would never take Bennett to Disney. And then I was like, hi, so I think we should buy a Disney annual passes. And he's like, I thought you said we'd never do that. And I'm like, yeah, but who cares? I said it, but I didn't mean it anymore. Like, it's just fine. It was no big deal. Or like when I sent an email to the list saying like, I'm doing the thing I said I'd never do. It's not like a bunch of people were like, you're such a fucking hypocrite. People were like, oh my God, that's amazing. It totally makes sense why you would do that now. So just want to make note that like permission, it's okay. You can say never and still do the thing. You can just like be an evolving human. And I just cannot, stress that enough. That has been very helpful for me this year to just remember, like, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. Even if I said something different, I'm allowed to change my mind. Right. Which, the next thing is more of a personal thing and kind of an emotional thing. So I'll try not to like really go there too hard because I do not feel like crying on a live stream today, although you never know. But y'all know I lost my dad last year. And like it just really reminded me so much of like there is literally nothing more important than your health and your humans. Like that's pretty much fucking it. Like all of this stuff it matters in the sense that like I love my business. I care about my clients so deeply. I want to make an impact. And at the end of the day, like I know for sure what I'm going to be looking back on is like the relationships I had with those humans, the relationships I had with my close humans, and like, ultimately your health. Like those are the things that impact your day and your life the most. I was reading this Harvard study. I think it was like, I'm going to butcher this a little bit, guys, because I didn't like do my homework on this. It was like an 80+ year study. They studied like a ton of different things, but overarchingly, like one of the findings was like the quality of your intimate relationship or your marriage or whatever, however you want to say that, was the like biggest impactor of your life's happiness, right? And that makes so much sense to me. Like it really, really does. And it like, again, the business matters, the business is important, but it's going to change and it's going to evolve and clients will come and clients will go. But like these relationships and our humans, like our close humans, our children, our partners, like that is literally all that fucking matters at the end of the day. And I feel like just coming back to that this year has been so wildly helpful. Again, I think sometimes in this online space, it feels like nothing matters more than growth and scaling. And it's just like so easy to get in the fucking bubble. And I think, sometimes you just have like life events that pop that bubble and you're like, actually nothing fucking matters more than like, do I like have a great partnership? Am I a present mom for my child? Like, am I spending my time in a way that feels aligned to like who and how I want to be on this fucking planet? Like, right. Like I'm not going to be laying on my deathbed being like, I wish I would have scaled faster. Like who the actual fuck cares? Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be like, did I like love the work I did? Did I spend the time with my people that mattered? Was I so stressed out about work that I couldn't be a present mom? Like all of that is bullshit, So just remembered that so much this year and just took that in so deeply. And like, obviously it was incredibly hard and traumatic to have my dad pass like right as my son was born, basically a couple months, right? But I feel like it really gave me great perspective that I want to like carry on with that, like the rest just doesn't matter. And again, it doesn't mean you don't show up for your business and your people and serve and all of those things, but it's like, I want to do that from a perspective of like, because this is how I want to be as a human and what I want to look back on and be really proud of versus like, just for the fact of like, this is what it took to scale, like like all of that feels like funny to me almost at this point. And I think it's still very real and raw. And I'm sure, will feel slightly different, a couple years from now, et cetera. But this year that has just felt like so tangible and so present. And it's also made me really think like, if I'm going to be away from my son during the day to do work, I only want to do work that feels really impactful and meaningful to me and is with people I love. And, I really did like a survey of kind of like not survey, like as in I surveyed them, but like my own personal survey of like, do I look forward to getting on the phone with these clients? Does this feel impactful? Does this feel meaningful? Do I want to spend my time away from my son in this way? And to me, that feels like a yes. And I think if we're doing things where that isn't a yes, it's so important to reevaluate that. Leah said, love this point. Thanks for sharing with us. I feel like the online business industry is getting really sick from how demanding it can be for us. I love that people are shifting away from it and back towards presence. Totally agree with that. It's so, even the demand of like once you said something once, that's like going to get held against you if you do something different or like, right. I think there's so many layers to that, but I totally agree. Like at the end of the day, like none of it really matters. Like, obviously we want to like make great money and make an impact. And like, I need this business to like contribute to our life and all those things. I'm not trying to make light of that. But this idea that like it is the thing over everything that it kind of gets painted to be in our space, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? Sometimes I wonder if I get all my needs met, will I stop caring about working in the same way? Oh, that's interesting. Sorry. I'm trying to think about what the answer is for me to that. I think it's like a priorities thing a little bit, right? It's almost like a hierarchy of needs to an extent. Like, I think that, certainly if like the business or like monetarily, like you need the business to make basic needs, then it really does make sense to prioritize that in a certain way. And I think that that's healthy, right? Especially as it contributes to you then having the like resources, time, et cetera, to like spend with your humans, spend on your health, et cetera. So I feel like it's a hierarchy of needs thing. So I don't think it's ever that you stop like caring about it, but I do think like where it lines up on the hierarchy of needs sort of changes. That's sort of what makes sense to me, I think, in terms of like what I've experienced or I've seen clients experience. So like, yes, and Hogwarts journey twice. Oh, that's so cute, y'all. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like, would I desire to wind down and go a ton slower professionally versus not wanting to work? Yeah, maybe. I feel like I'm here a little bit in my biz now. It hasn't changed my desire to work, but it's taken pressure off and slowed things down. Yeah, I think that's true, right? Because like needs wise, it's like relevant to be like, okay, so like sometimes these needs are like immediate and then sometimes they're like less pressured and stuff. So I think, yeah, that makes sense, Michelle. But yeah, like it's just your health and your humans are what matters. Like even I do not routinely get very sick, but I was quite sick a little bit ago with like an just like a really, well, I guess it was COVID. I keep thinking it wasn't COVID because I like tested negative for so long until I tested positive, but I was quite sick and I just like the impact on like my mindset and how I was feeling and how I could show up, or like seeing my dad be really sick. Like, it's just like your health and your people. That's it, which kind of leads me to my last point that I think is like maybe aligned to, but slightly contradictory in some ways, but is like, we can prioritize those things while still delivering an epic client experience. I feel like our space is always swinging one way or another. Always, 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 right? It's either like nothing matters besides like growth and money and scaling, or like you should be able to only focus on your people and your health, and you should be able to grow and scale in all the ways at the exact same time. Does that make sense? Like, it's so like only one thing should get your attention, but it should all look good, and it's just so pressurizing for so many people. Oh, let me see comments here. I imagine my most spiritually present self as being very blessed out in the mundane. Yes, I love that. Hey, Kristen, good to see you. Yeah, so like your health and your humans are all that matters, and you can still prioritize those and deliver an amazing, business and experience. And like those just that pressure, right? Of like the holy grail being like, make all the money while doing none of the business stuff, to me is like one of the most damaging things in our space, because people think like, okay, yes, that's fine. I hear you. That's true. My health and my humans are all that matters. Now I need a business that allows me to prioritize that fully and completely in every way, shape, or form, makes a ton of money, but doesn't ever look like working in the business. And then there's all this tension that gets built, right? And for me, what I've like really found this year is like, of course I work in the business. I have a nanny. I am not with my son 24/7, but because I have a business that is like very fulfilling to me, and because I have clients that, I love, and I'm not like stressed out by 24/7, that when I have the time with Bennett, which is a lot each day, right, I can be present for it. And I feel like they feed each other really well. But I think the idea that I should have, like 7-figure success and like be with my kid 24/7 and it's just like this different version of like pressure as like a mom and business owner and all of those kind of things. And so this year I've just been like, wait, I'm checking every fucking box that's important to me. And maybe someone else wouldn't agree with how it looks. Like I did a post recently on how like I work at night sometimes right now. And, I work out inconsistently and it's like, that all works for me right now. And it's still giving me everything that I want. And so just remembering like you can still have a great business and prioritize the things that matter to you, but it's probably not going to look like not having to do anything at all in the business. And I think the more it gets positioned like that, the more that we make ourselves wrong, the more that we're like living the dream and not seeing the dream. Like I feel like for so many of my clients, like that's something I'm reflecting to them a lot. I'm like, wait, you're feeling bad about this one little thing, but like you're checking off the list of like 20 things that matter to you. Like, can we make that right? I feel like that's such an important thing that we get to keep finding ourselves in the online space. Why is that marketing attractive? Because one, of course it's attractive. Like who doesn't want to just like make gobs of money and never have to show up in the business, right? Or do anything hard at all. Like I feel like, of course that seems attractive, but it's actually just what gets us to buy, right? Because it's just how we feel like even if everything's right, something's wrong. You know what I mean? It's like literally just a marketing tactic. And so just kind of like being aware of that, I think is so valuable and so important. I love a behind the scenes live of how you structure your days, how much you work versus spend time with Bennett and other fun things you like to do. Oh, cute. I like that. I can do that for sure. Yeah, totally. And, I think that's probably like helpful too, because it's like, I do feel like I have a really good balance, but I also am like, what's the word I want to use? I'm trying to think how I want to say it. Like, I feel like I have a really good balance, but I definitely make trade-offs in a way that like, I feel like you're not supposed to, if that makes sense. Like the working at night, after he goes to bed. I mean, when I say at night, it's not like midnight, it's like after he goes to bed at like 8. But like that I think gets made out to be so wrong. But for me right now, that's so supportive in my life and business that like that's gives me so much more time with him during the day. That gives me so much more ease in my days. It makes my days less rushed. So it's just like realizing we can have all of these things, but they might look different than kind of like the perfect thing that we see. And I feel like that is so powerful. I think I was thinking about this recently, but one of like the greatest gifts I think of just being a one-on-one coach is like seeing behind the scenes for everyone and realizing that no matter how perfect the person or business or social media or whatever seems, like everyone always has their own challenges and their own shit. And when we realize that and just give ourselves permission for that and to make it work in whatever way works for me, like, or whatever way works for you, like that is where I think like freedom is, and it doesn't have to look that way for anyone else. But to me, like that's where so much freedom lies. Shari said, yes, exactly. My work is one of the best parts of my life the last few years, but I do wonder sometimes if there's a point where other things become more fulfilling, it might feel less. Yeah, totally. I think it changes, right? Like in some ways, I feel like since being a parent, my work feels even more fulfilling in some ways because it feels like, I just feel like the weight of how important it is to like impact other humans and stuff like that. But also I think definitely less intensity around it too, because it just feels like, this child is like the most important thing in your world in every way. So it's like interesting, but I think it's quite supportive. Leah says, same. I feel so proud, good about only working 30 hours a week as a mom, but I get up at 4:30 and just the trade-off that works for me that some people would hate. Exactly. Right. Like Leah and I talk about this all the time. I could literally never get up at 4:30 a.m. and she could literally not work in the evenings like I am. Like both of us are just like, ew, no, but like so respect how that works so well for the other person. And I think that's what's important. Like it literally does not matter if you get up at 4:30 or work until 8:30 or whatever. It's just like, does this work for you? And if it does, and it feels good and you love your day and you love your life and you love your schedule, then the idea of making that wrong, of being like, ew, you get up at 4:30, ew, you work at 8 p.m. I would never, like, that is so not it, right? So like, I just think that that's so helpful to see. But Leah and I also spend a lot of time with our kiddos during the day too. And so like, that's a trade-off, like we're both willing to make. So anyway, like just really beautiful, I think, to be like, there's not a right way to do things, but this idea that there is actually what's so damaging, you know, like what's that thing that tells you to get up at 4:30 in the morning that was like so popular of like how you're supposed to start your day. And it's like what everyone does. And like, it's just, you know what I mean? There's like always the pressure. And it's just so cool, I think, to release that and be like, I can prioritize my health and my humans, and I get to do it in the way that like works for me. And I'm still probably gonna have to run a business in that process. Yeah. Miracle morning. I think it's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Love my night shifts of work. Michelle says, ooh, to both. Yes. Prime brain work hours are middle of the day. Yep. And mornings and evenings are momming time. Yeah. So I think that's just like so helpful to see. Like, and for me, like during the day, Bennett comes in my office like a lot. So that is not when I'm most focused. Like, obviously not if I'm on a work call, but if I'm not on a work call, he's probably like in my office doing something. And I feel like for some people, they would be like, oh my God, that sounds like hell. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so cute. Like he can walk in here anytime during the day. It's like so fine and fun. But again, like just depends on what works for you. So anyway, that has been a beautiful lesson. It's just given me so much good perspective to see we are all doing this differently. It all works for us in different ways. And it's fine. This is why I became anti-morning routine. Totally ignores your intuition and self-trust to just nourish your own body and the mind in the way you need each day. Amen. I love that, Leah. It's so true. It's like, you don't know what you're doing. So here is this thing you must do. And it's like, well, what if I just like knew that this one thing felt better for me? So that is that. I think that's it. I think that was 7. Let me see. Let me look at my notes here. Was that 7? It was. So again, these are not like I'm doing it right, you should do it this way kind of thing. Just some perspective, take what resonates, leave the rest. Like, just helpful, I think, to hear these sometimes and to remember like we're all doing what works best for us. We're all allowed to make our own trade-offs. We're allowed to make ourselves right in the process. And I think like that is honestly, that's the gist of how I've stayed in business for 7 years. I try to make myself right in the process. I give myself credit. I listen to my gut and I make myself right. So I think that is, you know, kind of the takeaway here. What are your current fave sources of inspiration or learning at the moment? Sorry, I'm laughing because I just watched this documentary recently and I was so like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And I feel like it has actually given me a lot of inspiration. But it's really weird when I tell you what it is. It is, oh my God, I think it's on HBO and it was called, I don't know if I'm going to get the title exactly right, but it's basically like the rise and fall of LuLaRoe. And it like documented like that whole MLM business of LuLaRoe with the leggings. Leah, I just started the Bama Rush one, but I haven't finished it. But I'm like, barely started it, but I'm so excited about that one too. So tell me if it's good. But yes, that's like next on the list. I'm like trying to find a way to make Kenny watch that with me. And he's like, I don't know. But okay, the LuLaRoe one is so interesting because in some ways there's so many core parallels to the online space and some of the things that we talk about. And in another way, like you can see how like 2 clicks the wrong way is really the wrong way. And it's just been so fascinating. Okay, if you've been going down the MLM rabbit hole research lately, then you absolutely need to watch this documentary. It is so fascinating. And it has just like really made me think about like, where is the line? What makes sense? Like, I love shit like that. You know what other one I really liked? I made all my clients watch it, I think. I think it was on HBO too. Oh my God, I cannot remember what it's called, but it was like that cult. It was like it ended up being like a sex cult. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Oh my God, I cannot think of it. The guy's name was like Keith Rainier. But that was fascinating too, because again, sort of similarly, like very personal development-y focused, and then kind of like took this really wrong The Vow. Thank you, Tristan. I'm sure I can try to convince you to watch that. And it's just so interesting to be like, oh, you can just see where like this starts to go wrong. Or you can kind of see in our online space where like some people might be bordering on that. And so it's just like really interesting. So anyway, all of that has been fascinating me lately and really like inspiring me in some ways to be like, oh, let's talk about this more. What are the lines? What makes sense? So anyway, that is my fucked up inspiration lately. So insightful watching it. Yes, agree. I'm not the biggest fan of documentaries, but I do love the ethical mind gymnastics. Exactly. That has been like where my head is at lately. I think especially as I feel like the coaching world is going through kind of like a, like a reinvention in some ways. Um, Wait, Tristan, what? I did not know there was a season 2. Now I have plans later. Allow me to make myself a note. Season 2. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay. Sorry, guys. I really don't want to forget this. Okay. Gonna watch that. But, especially as the coaching industry, I think is kind of going through this like change and reinvention in some ways and stuff. Like it's really interesting to be like, oh, what lines feel good, what don't, where does this go wrong? Like I love setting other businesses. And so I think it's just been interesting to do it in this, like through that way. So anyway, that has been exciting to me lately. I think that's it, guys. That's all I got. Yeah, just, not making yourself wrong, I think is a big one here. But, it's been a big fucking year with like having Bennett, losing my dad, moving, starting Dateable, navigating so many family dynamics through that season, all of that stuff. And I feel like, just continuing to kind of come back to like, I get to keep deciding what's right for me. I get to keep making myself right. I get to change my mind. I get to keep doing my thing has been so nourishing. So I hope that is true and helpful for y'all to just take anything from that feels good for you. And yeah, just thanks for being here and hanging out with me for this conversation, especially on Memorial Day. I hope y'all have a beautiful week. I will be back next week. And yeah, just again, thank you for being here. And remember, if you comment, you're entered to win that $100 gift card. So love and appreciate y'all. Thank you, Adrian. I hope that you guys have a wonderful week and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.